Gala dinners to raise funds to activate the scientific work of the Gaia Team. Gaia Team TO set a threshold of 1.5 degrees C and positive feedback, above which global warming accelerates and aggravates. An upcoming prolonged drought may cause continental crop failures, livestock deaths, and half the world's population to die from starvation. It must be borne in mind that if an intercontinental drought occurs for a year, all the large crops will be lost and, as a result, between 2 and 4 billion human beings will die of hunger 3 months after this terminal crisis occurs. There will be a lack of drinking water, food. The cities that depend on mountain rivers, glaciers, and snow will no longer have water to drink. We are not prepared worldwide to face such a picture of crisis. And this is only the beginning. Even worse scourges await us if we do not stop global warming immediately. What is urgent and priority? Establish the actual timeline of events. We now know that the warming is in the acceleration phase. Serious scientific studies are needed to determine statistically and probabilistically how this acceleration translates into years. It is not the same to expect 1.5 degrees C in 30 or 50 years than in 5 years. Furthermore, if the acceleration time is much shorter, the effects and changes in climatic phenomena will be much more intense and severe. First step. The Gaia Team project begins with a body of 30 world-renowned scientists, with extensive curricula in environmental issues, which would be led by Drs. James Hansen, famed physicist, American climatologist, adjunct professor in the Department of Earth and Environmental Sciences at Columbia University. Until early 2013, he headed NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies in New York, which is part of the Goddard Space Flight Center, and Professor Lowell Stott, of the Department of Geology at the University of Southern California, to which they are invited to collaborate in the rented team task. The investigation will have a maximum time of 3 months. The participating scientists, according to their qualifications, will receive a remuneration of up to $9,000 per month. Team leaders will receive $30,000 per month. Total, $1 million. Where will the funds come from? 1. In the first instance, donations will be requested from billionaires. Any of them can channel and manage Team Gaia through their respective foundations. 2. Credit lines will be requested from the banks, backed by the environmental multinationals that adhere to the project. 3. An internet page will be set up to raise funds. Banks as well as insurance companies are directly impacted by global warming. The former grant credits to build tower buildings facing the sea, when the ocean waters will soon rise and make those facilities uninhabitable. Floods, droughts, hail and other phenomena affect crops and insurance companies must pay the costs. For both cases, accurate information about how much time we have left before the situation worsens, with what intensity and what other phenomena can occur, is really valuable and vital. Second step. Once the Gaia Team completes its report, at 90 days, the UN should be asked to cooperate and ask the IPCC working under its jurisdiction to confirm or refute this report within 90 days. The brevity of the deadlines is because we have run out of time to apply countermeasures against the climatic anomaly. We must react quickly. Once the scientific community issues its opinion, the UN will be able to count on a truthful element about the looming threat to alert all the governments of the planet. From there, go on to declare a planetary emergency and apply global measures without anesthesia to stop the catastrophe in process. Target questions. According to the study, published in the journal Environmental Research Letters, 17,000 years ago, at the end of the Pleistocene epoch, naturally occurring carbon gases escaped from the seafloor and so altered Earth's atmosphere that melted the Ice Age. Currently, undersea carbon reservoirs release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere as the oceans warm due to human activity. If undersea carbon stores are disturbed again, they will emit a huge new source of greenhouse gases, exacerbating climate change, said Lowell Stott, a professor of earth sciences at the University of Southern California, USA, and lead author of the study, cited by the physics.org portal. The big challenge is that we don't have estimates of the size of these or which ones are particularly vulnerable to destabilization. It is something that still remains to be determined. The last time it happened, the climate change was so great that it caused the end of the Ice Age. Once that geological process starts, we won't be able to stop it, Stott warned. At the current rate of increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the planet is likely to experience several degrees of increase in global temperature and large-scale changes such as the loss of ice sheets that could lead to an increase in the level of the sea of several meters in this century, as stated by Dr. James Hansen. 2 degrees Celsius of warming would make planet Earth much warmer than it was during the Eemian, and would bring it closer to Pliocene conditions, when sea levels were about 25 meters higher than today, Hansen said. The Secretary-General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, is calling on all the governments of the planet to urgent climate action. In this sense, the support of a core scientific report on the cycle of Arctic permafrost, carbohydrates in the Arctic and carbon reservoirs in the oceans is required. In order for the world to mobilize, science must answer the following questions. 1. How much carbon and methane is stored in the submarine bed and in the Arctic Circle? 2. If all this methane and carbon is released into the atmosphere, how many degrees will the global average temperature increase, especially over the poles? 3. With this higher temperature, what will be the rate of thawing of the glacial massifs in Greenland and Antarctica? 4. Is there already a process for the release of gases from permafrost and methane gas hydrates in the Arctic? 5. How much more must the temperature rise and the albedo effect be reduced for the chain reaction of the release of Arctic submarine methane gas hydrates to start? 6. How many years are left before this chain reaction begins? 7. Can you guarantee that it will not happen? 8. Do you have empirical, statistical, probabilistic, comparative data to be able to evaluate the phenomenon? 9. What do you recommend to do if the data is insufficient? 10. If the WMO is right and in the next 5, they estimate 2025/2027 years the threshold of 1.5 degrees C is reached, what extreme phenomena will occur on the planet? 11. Due to the constant increase in pollution, 450 ppm of CO2 will be reached in 2030, then we will be able to reach 2 degrees Celsius. What extreme phenomena will occur on the planet? 12. If it reaches 2 degrees C, the floating ice of the North Pole will thaw in the summers, the Arctic Ocean will warm up and the immense deposits of methane gas hydrates may be released. The average temperature can jump to 6 degrees C and up to 12 degrees C in both poles. What extreme phenomena will occur on the planet? 13. Is there a causal relationship between the greater current retention of energy by the planet and seismic and volcanic activity? 14. Do you support the initiative of 3% of annual global GDP for the planet? 15. When will the oceans begin to emit carbon? 16. From what ocean temperature do surfactants drastically decrease the capacity of the oceans to absorb CO2? 17. What percentage of loss of rainforest in Amazonia is enough to activate a process of structural conversion into irreversible savanna? The United Nations is currently talking about organizing the efforts of all countries to reduce carbon emissions by 45% before 2030 and reach zero emissions in 2050. This objective may be insufficient if we are within a short time distance from the critical threshold for the abrupt chain reaction of the release of methane gas in the Arctic Circle and carbon in the other oceans of the world. If this is the case, it will be necessary to reach zero emissions immediately. Irreversible tipping points. Professor Johan Rockström, Director of the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, and Dr. David Armstrong McKay from the University of Exeter warn that giant ice sheets, ocean currents, and permafrost regions may already be past the point. Irreversible inflection. The collapse of the Greenland glaciers is in an active phase and accelerating with the current 1.1 degrees Celsius increase in global temperature. Ocean levels can rise rapidly. The North Atlantic haline current may collapse, disrupting the rainfall cycles on which billions of people depend for food. Permafrost rich in carbon and methane gas can thaw abruptly. When the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold is reached, there will be changes in the vast northern forests and losses in almost all mountain glaciers. The researchers indicate that the world is heading towards a warming of 2/3 degrees C, which will activate 16 tipping points and others in a cascade. With possible destabilization of the Amazon rainforest and its irreversible loss, affecting the climate of the entire planet. The extinction of tropical coral reefs will also take place, along with changes in the West African monsoon and the Indian summer monsoon, with likely loss of oxygen from the ocean. In addition, the melting of the Antarctic glaciers will accelerate. The first 6 climate points of no return. Collapse of the Greenland ice sheet. The collapse of the West Antarctic ice sheet. The collapse of ocean circulation in the polar region of the North Atlantic. Extinction of coral reefs in low latitudes. Sudden melting of the permafrost, permanently frozen ground layer, in the northern regions. Abrupt loss of sea ice in the Barents Sea. Gala dinner to raise funds for the Gaia Team. Mayday is pre-organizing gala dinners in the United States, in the cities of New York, Washington, Miami, and Los Angeles. We have invited the American Bank to manage the funds that will be used for the preparation of the scientific report that will be carried out by the Gaia Team. Report that will make it possible to determine the next critical threshold or turning point in global warming, from which the positive feedbacks of global ecosystems will be activated, hyper-accelerating as a consequence the climatic anomaly. This report will have a period of 90 days to be made. And then, also within 90 days, it must be confirmed or refuted by the UN IPCC, to which we request your collaboration. Once the reality of the situation in the short and medium term has been defined, the Planetary Emergency Plan can be approved, which must apply drastic measures to reduce pollution immediately. The survival of civilization and of the human species itself is at stake. We must all work together in a cooperative, synchronized and supportive way to save the planet, ourselves and our families from this great threat that hangs over our near future. We will pay the organization costs with 10% of the funds raised. We invite environmental organizations, environmental politicians, climate scientists and celebrities to actively join this initiative to save the lives of all, among all. Chat preliminary report. The best utility that we can immediately give to the advanced AI of the OpenAI ChatGPT and the adapted Microsoft AI is to load the maximum number of interacting variables into the weather anomaly, which determine positive feedbacks in a domino effect, which can hyper-accelerate the global warming. And ask to the AI what year the next probable tipping point will happen. This preliminary report will serve to support the Gaia Team initiative so that a team of world-renowned environmentalists carry out detailed field, statistical, probabilistic and casuistic studies and establish the event horizon. According to the extreme hypothesis of Dr. James Hansen, the the rupture of the thermoequilibrium of our planet can push the entire ecosystem into a phase change, causing intense vaporization of ocean waters, with a greater greenhouse effect potential than CO2 and a rise in temperature. Surface average at 100 degrees C. In other words, a totally uninhabitable planet. Can it happen? The problem is that we don't know. We handle insufficient and incomplete data and hypotheses. We urgently need more accurate information. This is not a joke. There is no need to be afraid either. At GSL Systems and at Mayday we know what to do and how to do it. We are preparing and working to operate from the Global Coordination Center to attend to the accelerating planetary climate emergency. We need all the help and cooperation we can get. The survival of all of us is at stake. Make your company participate with a logo of adhesion. We request the support of your company in the form of adhesion, through the publication of a logo of the brand on this same page, to the gala dinners that Mayday will organize in the cities of New York, Washington, and Los Angeles, with the aim of raising funds to fund the Gaia Team's research to determine the next tipping point in global warming, which is when the climate anomaly hyper-accelerates. We have invited Bank of America to manage the funds raised, so that the entire initiative is totally transparent, with a 100% honesty guarantee. If possible, we would like to be able to count on the participation of the adherents in the organization of these events, to guarantee their success. We will pay a percentage of the proceeds to everyone who works in the organization. We need to summon the support of environmental banks, multinational companies, and personalities from the world of entertainment and sports. Due to the acceleration of global warming, we are all at risk, especially those of us who live in coastal cities. We call for everyone to participate and cooperate in an organized, synchronized, planned, and supportive way. Only then will we be able to overcome this global challenge and safeguard our lives and those of all our loved ones. Protect capital. The next stage of our work is to define the strategies to protect capital if the first expected global crisis occurs, ocean rise of 30 CTS accelerated. As we explained in our notes, this will cause all coastal property to go to zero immediately and cause stock markets around the world to plummet. Currencies will break out lower. Everything will lose value, including gold, diamonds, and cryptocurrencies. This is highly likely to happen in the 2025-2027 period. We are designing the correct strategies to shelter capital from the crisis that is approaching at full speed. This implies a profit opportunity, since the entire financial system today does not know what to do in the face of the new situation. This strategic advantage can be used for the benefit of green interbanks and the network of inter-associated banks, for the intensive capture of global capital and its relocation or reinvestment. We are all in the same boat. To prevent it from sinking, we must all put in goodwill. We must work together in a cooperative, coordinated, synchronized and supportive manner. We plan to activate the Forest Card credit card, whose objective is the intensive planting of trees to capture CO2. This project can be activated immediately if you cooperate with us. Not investing in saving the planet is the worst business possible. Mayday asks the mayors of New York, Washington, Miami, and Los Angeles for cooperation. Mayday calls on Mayors Muriel Bowser, Eric Adams, Francis Suarez, and Karen Bass for cooperation in stopping global warming. Good morning, Mayors Muriel Bowser, Eric Adams, Francis Suarez, and Karen Bass. May our good God enlighten your minds and bless your hearts always. We contacted them to request their help and cooperation. We are trying to organize gala dinners in the USA, in the cities of New York, Washington, Miami, and Los Angeles, to raise funds with which to activate the scientific team of the Gaia Team, whose mission and objective is to establish the next climatic inflection points within of the expected acceleration of global warming and define the probability of activation of positive feedbacks between the ecosystems involved, as soon as the global temperature of the planet exceeds the threshold of 1.5 degrees C, as it will happen between 2025/2027. What is the worst that can happen to us? With 1.5 degrees C or more, great intercontinental droughts can occur. As a consequence, crops will fail and then half of the world's population will starve. The sequence does not end there. The melting of the Thwaites Glacier in Antarctica will accelerate. It contains enough water to raise ocean waters between 30/60th centimeter. It also acts as a plug for other glaciers, which will begin to thaw and the waters can rise another 3 meters. The thawing of the permafrost will accelerate. More and more methane gas will be released and the temperature will rise, contributing to the thawing of more permafrost. The floating ice of the North Pole will tend to be reduced to the maximum. The albedo effect will decrease. Thus the waters of the Arctic Ocean will begin to warm and this will cause the release of the immense deposits of underwater methane gas hydrates, clathrates. Likewise, the temperature of the oceans will increase and they may become CO2 emitters. Adding up all possible feedbacks, the mean surface temperature can rise sharply by 4 to 6 degrees Celsius. This will greatly accelerate the melting of the ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica. They contain enough water for the waters to rise 70 meters. Is this the worst? No. If all the feedbacks build up and add up, according to Dr. James Hansen's worst-case scenario, we can enter a runaway warming cycle, with intense evaporation of ocean waters. Since water vapor is more efficient in the greenhouse effect than CO2, the surface temperature can reach 100 degrees C. It would be the end of all known life on Earth, in an effect similar to what occurs on Venus. When can it happen? Around 2035. To measure this risk, the report of the Gaia Team, made up of the 30 best environmental scientists from around the planet, is urgently needed. They must do so within 90 days. It will then need to be confirmed or refuted by IPCC scientists. We have already run out of time for preventive measures.